the link to the meeting. I'll have to download it and it'll process and all that, and then we'll post that on our teacher apprenticeship webpage. So thank you all for joining this morning. Looks like we're up to 42 people already in the meeting, so obviously a lot of interest. I'm going to recap some of the conversations we've had in the past, but I want to first let you know also there's a recording of the prior meetings that we've had on this topic is on our webpage. So we'll go through all of that this morning, but because we're moving forward in this process, we won't recap everything that we've always talked about. We'll go through some new material today. So it won't be a total repeat if you've been in one of these meetings before. I'm Josh Laney. I'm the director of the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship. We are excited to be launching this apprenticeship program for teachers in Alabama. I know that many of you have seen that there's a lot of interest across the country for teacher registered apprenticeship programs. Certainly there's been quite a bit of interest in the state, and we're excited to be able to get this off the ground very quickly. And also, wanted to point out that as we go through and develop this, there's a lot of media out and a bunch of publications coming out about grow your own programs and teacher apprenticeship programs. They're popping up now in virtually every state. And the only thing I want to say there is just a little bit of a caution that every single one of them is different. There's people calling things apprenticeships that are not, and there are people calling grow your own programs. That terminology is getting very loose. So just a word of caution that as you read about what is being done or what can be done or what should be done in other states, just keep in mind that every local and state context is unique. So today we're going to talk about, first let me just say that today's target audience is really for superintendents, school board members, maybe HR directors, the decision makers at the LEA level. Now, anybody who's interested is certainly welcome to stay on the call. There's no secrets here or anything, but we know that there are some folks on here who are interested in becoming apprentices, and that's fine, but this won't all necessarily relate to you. So today's audience really is those employers, the school systems who are going to be considering having apprentices. I want to start with just a very basic, very quick Apprenticeship 101. Many of you have heard this before, so I'm not going to belabor the point. The Alabama Office of Apprenticeship is what's known as a state apprenticeship agency. A state apprenticeship agency simply means that we have been recognized by the U.S. Department of Labor to register, expand, promote, and provide quality assurance for apprenticeship programs in the state. We took over management of that process from the U.S. Department of Labor back in 2019. Our office was created, and in March of 2020, we were recognized by the feds for having a registered apprenticeship program. That means that now we have some additional flexibilities that we can do as a state as we custom design programs to meet the needs of employers. It also means that we have local ingrained technical assistance instead of having to reach out to Washington, D.C. or the U.S. Department of Labor to try to get questions answered or figure out, what's going on with any part of your apprenticeship program. You'll be able to get straight to us, and we think that's been a pretty significant change now that we are a state apprenticeship agency, and the level of technical assistance we've been able to provide has helped us to really expand the number of apprenticeship opportunities. But we don't take the number of apprentices as our top line metric. We take employers served as our top line metric because numbers of apprentices can go up and down for a lot of reasons beyond our control. Our goal is to make sure that we meet the needs of every employer in the state. And as we design apprenticeship programs across the board, we are trying to not only diversify the types of occupations that are being taught. So if people normally think about apprenticeship, a lot of times you think about electricians and plumbers and carpenters and all of that, and we definitely do that stuff. But we also recognize the value of the apprenticeship model for all types of training occupations. Basically, if it's a technical skilled occupation that takes at least a year of on-the-job learning to master and meet certain other general criteria, then it can become an apprenticeship program. So with that outlook from our office, we have added first in the nation programs in lots of different areas. We've got a master's degree program in social work, only one in the country that results in a master's degree. We've got teacher apprenticeship on board or coming online soon, but also we've got nursing program. Again, we were first in the nation with nursing registered apprenticeships for both RNs and LPNs. And our goal there, many of you in the K-12 world are used to thinking about, especially in CTE, your non-traditional students, people that are not typically, females in carpentry or whatever. But we believe that the other avenue to diversifying apprenticeship is diversifying the kinds of jobs that apprenticeship is available to. So we know that it's a great model. It's an earn and learn model. Every apprentice is an employee first. And so by being an employee first, they're supported by their employer through going through that training program. So Apprenticeship 101, it's a very structured training plan. It is always paid work, on the job learning hours, combined with related technical instruction. So you'll see the exact details of this example today. But that's one of the big key differentiators there. And if you imagine the scenario here for teacher apprenticeship specifically, if you are young and somebody else can support you, and maybe you're still, kind of on mom and daddy's dime while you're going to college, that 4-year residential model at the university makes sense, right? It's not a big deal. Somebody else is going to pay my bill while I do that semester of unpaid internship. But if you're not in that boat and you are looking to become a teacher, and maybe this is a second career for you, or maybe you didn't come straight out of school, you don't have somebody else floating your bills, an unpaid internship can be a showstopper for people getting into teacher programs. And likewise, we've seen this in other areas like paramedics who typically had to work clinical hours unpaid, or nurses who had to work clinical hours unpaid. So by applying the apprenticeship model, we believe that we're removing barriers for both time, because as you'll see today, this apprenticeship model is being offered in a way that works for working adults, but also in cost. And so, as we say, if you can remove the barriers of time and money, I can basically do anything. So that's our goal here with setting up this teacher apprenticeship program. I want to be clear right out of the gate. This is a pilot. This is the first time we've done it. Everybody you see around the country, it's the first time they've done it. So we may have to figure some things out as we go. We're working to apply what we know about apprenticeship to an industry education where we have not really done that before. And so this is definitely a pilot that we're trying to see if it's going to work. We believe in it. We do not think that this is the answer, the silver bullet to solving the teacher shortage. This is a pathway that is designed for a specific group of people who need access and need those barriers removed, and who we believe will become excellent teachers going through this training program. We'll have very high return on investment with this because, as you'll see when we start talking about the target audience, we believe that they're going to stick around. We know, everybody in education knows that burnout and first-year washout is a real thing. And so we're trying to eliminate the idea of a first-year teacher. These folks won't be first-year teachers. They will be, inculcated right into the full teaching lifestyle and the full experience of being teachers while they're learning to be teachers. So trying to remove that sticker shock as we come in the door. So let's talk a little bit just real quickly about how is this program that we're modeling, how is it different from what a traditional education program looks like? Again, to be clear, we're not saying this will ever completely take the place of the standard teaching model. Lord knows there's enough workforce shortage to go around. So this is not an instead of, this is an and. But in your traditional teaching model, we've already kind of hit on, there's a 4-year expectation that's almost a residential always model. You're going to go to college. That's going to be your primary job, and that's pretty much what you're going to do. And somehow you're going to be able to model this internship or make this internship fit into your life. I remember many moons ago when I was preparing to go into my internship as a science teacher, our intern coordinators very sternly told us, don't plan on getting married, don't plan on having a baby, don't plan on moving. This is your life for the next, at that time, quarter, which was fine for me because I wasn't doing any of those things. But looking back, I'm just wondering, well, what if I was doing one of those things during that time? So the simplest way to explain, and we'll look in more detail, but the simplest big picture way to think about the difference between what we're doing with this teacher apprenticeship versus a traditional model. If you imagine taking that internship that is the last semester, typically, of a regular 4-year program, take that internship, move it to the junior year of the program, make it all year long, and make it paid. So now that person is in the classroom. They're still doing a lot of the same activities they would be doing as an intern, really all of the same activities. They're co-teaching, they're writing lesson plans, they're observing, they're participating in instruction, they're teaching and being observed, all of those things. But now instead of doing it for one semester, you do it for a full year during the 3rd year of your degree program, and you're paid for that time. So now I've removed that time and money barrier from the people who have been going through on their own dime and their own time trying to figure out how to do that. And then that means that now I've got a year of internship under my belt as I move into my senior year of my bachelor's degree program, and I'm going to have a classroom of my own during my senior year. Now I'll still have a journey worker, that's apprenticeship language for mentor, but I'll still have a journey worker that's supervising me, overseeing me, but I'll have a classroom of my own. So I'm getting a double benefit here as a school system. I am finding a person to fill this position that is ready to go into the classroom a year faster. But I'm also, as the apprentice who's participating, I'm not going in with that semester-long kind of honeymoon period internship being the total of my teaching experience. I've got twice as much, if you want to call it internship experience, as I would if I went through a traditional program, and I'm still being supported as I'm going through my education in year 4. So that's pretty much the difference. Now, this program, and we'll look at the exact details, this program starts at the point where a person would be able to complete their instruction in their bachelor's degree within 2 academic years. And I'll show you exactly what that list looks like. But this is not for incoming freshmen. This is not for people who are still just enrolled at a college of education somewhere, or already enrolled at a college of education and are 5 minutes from completing their degree. This is for people who have not more than 2 academic years of instruction under their left to go before they would complete their bachelor's degree. So with that said, that kind of narrows your pool that we're talking about. Now, I've gotten already tons of questions. What about the people who struggle with praxis? Or what about, I've got this student who's, going to be doing their internship next semester. Can I put them in? This is for a very specific population of people. And the reason that we're talking about that specific population comes down to return on investment. If we opened this up and said, yeah, we would let people come in, their freshman year of college, well, that means every employer who signs on to an apprenticeship agreement is committing as what we call the last dollar scholarship. And I'll show you exactly what those dollars mean. But essentially, our policy in the state of Alabama is the apprentice cannot incur the cost of the training. This is an employer's investment in their people. And so you've got to think about dollars and cents. What's the return on investment if I start people during their, freshman year of college? How many of those actually go on to finish and become teachers? A lot don't. So we're not looking to pay for the first 2 years of somebody's general ed studies and then never see them in a classroom. That means that you're going to be looking for candidates who have got some academic coursework under their belt already. Right there, you've narrowed down your population of potential apprentices. We're also not looking for, and I don't know any other way to say it. Well, let me be positive. We are looking for your top people. This is going to be a rigorous program. They are going to be working full-time, and they are going to be taking classes essentially full-time. Now, the model of delivery of the classes has been tailored so that it can be, hopefully, works for working adults, as I said. But this is not for people who are struggling. If I'm a struggling student, even if I've got the right number of academic hours to be eligible, you've got to really consider that. As the employer, you're the first one to endorse an apprentice's application and say, yes, they're ready to go. I want to invest in this person as a teacher. You know better than anybody else whether that person really has the capability of doing something like this. So as you're considering this program, this is for your cream of the crop. This is for those teachers' aides, parapros, and potentially some other types of school support personnel who are really high flyers. They're very sharp, and they just need that time and money barrier out of the way, and they'll go on to be great teachers. So keep that in mind as we're talking about your application process and who you would consider having come into the program. This is not for everybody. I don't want to discourage anybody. I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but I also don't want to see people bite off more than they can chew and then not have a good, successful program. This is for high achievers, top flyers, the people who are going to come out and be the best teachers in the state of Alabama. I really believe this program is going to do that. So that's kind of how it's different. And I want to walk through, I'm going to use our web page because this is what you can easily access. So I'm going to share my screen here momentarily. There we go. Out of my way. Meredith, you see in my screen, my webpage? Okay. All right, so I want to start you out on our Office of Apprenticeship webpage. So this is alapprentice.org, and you're welcome. Please follow along as we go. This has got general information about registered apprenticeship programs in the state. There's a map down here where you can find out, hey, where are these programs offered close to me? This shows your sponsors, people who are sponsoring registered apprenticeships. But I want to point you to this button right here in the top right corner, Teacher Apprenticeship, because this program is so new and we're trying to make sure we get all the information available to anybody who's trying to find it out. We have created a landing page specifically for this program. Many of you have already found this. Some of you are here because you got the invite by signing up on this Update Me mailing list right here. I don't know if Dr. Reyes is on here or not, but I think Dr. Reyes must have sent out a note to all of his parapros in the system to sign up, because I think every single one of them signed up between last Friday and this morning. But it doesn't matter. Anybody in the school system who is interested in learning about apprenticeship, the first thing I would recommend is make sure they've signed up here. Because when we add documents to the website, or when we make changes, or when we want to send out a reminder, hey, it's time to do so-and-so, we're going to use this for our mailing list. So we make sure everybody tries to stay, we try to keep everybody on board and up to speed with what's going on. So with that said, what's on this page? Well, starting right up here, you can find we are creating this apprenticeship program under executive order from the governor. If you'd like to go and read that executive order, it's pretty straightforward. She said, State Department, Alabama Office of Apprenticeship, school systems, go build a teacher apprenticeship program. We said, yes, ma'am, and we got after it. So that's what that executive order says there, and that started. And it also directed us to create a report to the governor, and that is the report. So if you're looking for very high-level, broad information on teacher apprenticeship program, a lot of that I just summarized for you about, how is this different and what does it look like? You can find that entire report right here, and you can go over as much detail, it's probably more detail than you ever wanted to know about it. It does lay out the way that we developed this program. So I just want to highlight for a moment, this is not the Office of Apprenticeships program that we built. Every apprenticeship is an employer-driven model for us, and that includes this one for teacher apprenticeship. So we started with these folks right here serving as what we call our competency work group. Apprenticeships can be measured in terms of competencies completed on the job or time completed on the job. The more modern method of doing that, and most of our new programs are competency-based. And so a competency is just like what you all use in the school system every day. The student will be able to observable action verb, right? So we brought together this group recommended from class and from the State Superintendents Association. And these folks spent a lot of hours working to develop a list of competencies. Those competencies define what the apprentice has to be able to do on the job. And I'll show you the end result of that in just a minute. So I just wanted to give you that assurance. This is not a thing that was built in a vacuum chamber in Montgomery and is being delivered to you, with that sometimes we do that with blinders on, right? And somebody brought you this program. These folks really worked hard, and I can't express my appreciation enough for the effort they put in to help us build out those competencies. Once they built out their competencies, we also went through a further step and aligned those competencies with the ATOT, that Alabama Teacher Observation Tool that you all are using. That means that your folks who are going to be doing this apprenticeship are going to be getting trained on the same things, plus a little bit, but on the same things with the same language. So if you've got a teacher, mentor, journey worker, it's not a whole new concept for them. This is not a new body of language that they're going to have to go look for. This will align well with your existing teacher observation tool. That is excellent for you in implementation, but it was also a vote of confidence for all of us and this teacher competency group that you're seeing here. When they developed the list of competencies, and then we sat and crosswalked them with the ATOT, and we found an extremely high level of match. So I don't remember, it was 90% some odd match. So that just goes to tell you, this is not something, again, that was created in a vacuum that's being delivered to you. Hopefully you will see things that you recognize and understand there. So you can read all of that report if you'd like to. It talks about what is related technical instruction. So we use two terms in apprenticeship very frequently. We hear us say OJL, that's on-the-job learning. That's the thing that the person has to demonstrate in the classroom, and it is evaluated by their journey worker. And then you've got RTI, related technical instruction. In this case, that's the courses that they have to complete to get their bachelor's degree. And so that's all laid out in the document that I'll show you here in a minute. The State Department of Education, of course, is a key component of this. They have worked to create a teacher apprentice license, or I think it may be called a teacher apprentice certificate, but they are designating a specific licensure pathway for this so that the person is under a specific license for the 2 years they're working as an apprentice. It's possible that it could be extended to a third year, but that would be under extenuating circumstances. This is expected to be a 2-year completion program. The qualifications are laid out here. I'm not going to go through them in this long document, but I will show you those qualifications in the next document. So if you're interested and want to go take a look at that long report, there's one difference in this report versus what we actually wound up doing. We had originally planned for the State Department of Education to be the sponsor, and I'll define that momentarily. And what we wound up adjusting was we've got each of the participating universities are going to be the sponsors. It just worked out better for a variety of reasons to do it that way. So if you read this report, that'll be a difference between those two things. So what is the, then also just back on this webpage, you can see here, if you want to go back and watch that last interested employer meeting, this first part that I'm giving you is spelled out in a little more detail in that one if you'd like to go watch that. There's also here a sample job description. We were asked for this, and we created it in conjunction with a few HR folks and superintendents who were interested in participating. It's not required that the LEA use this job description, but we wanted to give you a good sample if you wanted to go check it out. So if you haven't posted these jobs or anything yet and you're looking for a job description, there's a good example right there to save you some time. So the setup of the program, we start with what we call the standards of apprenticeship. So the standards of apprenticeship are created by the sponsors, and you can see the logos here on the page. These 4 universities are what we're calling sponsors. The sponsor is the organizing body who oversees the apprenticeship. And for comparison purposes, you can kind of think about the sponsor as the front office of the school. They are the one who is keeping track of who's in the apprenticeship, who's completed, what step they're at. They're reporting all of that up to me, all right, at the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship. So each of those sponsors is running an apprenticeship for teacher education. There are 4 of them, as you can see. Not every one of them is exactly the same. Competencies are the same. But if you think about if I'm a student at AUM versus being a student at Jack State, my coursework might look a little bit different, or the arrangement, the order of courses, or the times that they're offered. So as you're considering, as an employer, considering joining an apprenticeship program, you're going to join under one of these 4 sponsors. You can join under all 4 of them if you want to. whatever suits your needs, your employment needs, and whatever looks best to you when you look at their training outlines, you can join under 1, 2, 3, or 4, whatever you want to do. I would recommend that you consider places where you already have some type of arrangement where you get interns from them maybe already, or you know those people, or if you've got people you're thinking of being candidates and you find out, oh, well, they work with Jack State, they're taking classes at Jack State, then join under Jack State so that person can keep going and taking classes in an organization they're already admitted to. So that's the sponsor. There are 4 potential sponsors that you're going to join under. Each of those sponsors has a landing page. So I'll just pick one here. So if I want to know specific information about UWA's apprenticeship, then I'm going to go here and I'm going to look at the standards. So as you can see in the description, the overarching document establishes UWA as a sponsor for registered apprenticeship programs. Now, it turns out UWA does more than just teaching. They have other types of apprenticeships, but it sets their school up as the university up as a registered apprenticeship sponsor. So you can review those standards. In fact, I recommend you review those standards because what you'll see there, and I'll drag a copy over here to the screen, what you will see there is this is what the university has committed to do. This is what UWA has committed to do as an apprenticeship sponsor. You can see this was actually signed back in 2020. So this is predating the apprenticeship, teacher apprenticeship by a good ways. But you can go through this. I'm not going to read all of this to you, but there's a long section here about what the sponsors shall do. I want to point out that a distinction between, just take this first one, for example, ensure adequate and safe equipment and facilities for training and supervision, safety training, and for apprentice on the job and related instruction. It doesn't mean that the sponsor is going to do every one of these things. They are either going to do those things or they're going to require a commitment from their participating employers that those things are getting done. So the UWA is not going to start coming out and necessarily inspecting your buildings, looking for safety, that kind of thing. You're just going to be committing that you're providing, as an employer, a safe place and providing the appropriate equipment and facilities, which you are all doing anyway. So when you sign on to UWA's program, having reviewed these standards, you know that in some cases they are actually doing the things. In other cases, they are requiring that you do the things. Another example would be anti-harassment training, right? There's a requirement that everybody related to the apprenticeship program participate in anti-harassment training. UWA might offer anti-harassment training, or as a school system, you might just say, hey, we do that every single year. Here's the record of where we did it on, Institute Day that year, and everybody involved participated. So it doesn't really create new workloads or change much about the relationship between how you and the university would have interacted in the first place. But the university may need you to take that anti-harassment example. They may need you to send them an agenda and say, yeah, we did it. Here it is. Every employee attended, and it was on this date. That way, they've got the documentation that they've met their requirements. So there's also here you see about they are required to update information about apprentices within 45 days of enrollment, or 45 days of any change, really. So there are some reporting requirements, and you might have to be the one to share that information with them so that they know what to report. The rest of this is very generic because it covers all the types of apprenticeship that they would potentially do. So minimum qualifications, we'll look at that for the specific job that we're talking about. Probationary period, let me just hit this one while it's on the screen here. You'll see in this document and in the next document we're going to look at, there's a comment about a probationary period. The apprenticeship does not add to or subtract from the employment rights of the apprentice. So the very first, one of the most common questions we get is about, well, can a person earn tenure as an apprentice and all that? Let me point you to the teacher FAQs. A lot of these questions have already been answered. I would encourage you to go through that list as well. If you haven't already, please do take a look down that FAQ document. So the answer is no, they're not going to earn they're not going to earn tenure as an apprentice. But I just wanted to point that out that lost my document. That probationary period doesn't change. That doesn't mean that they are a probationary employee. That is their probation in the apprenticeship. So we look at, just like you do graduation rates, we look at completion rates for apprentices. We don't set a minimum threshold that sponsors have to hit, but we're looking for sponsors to have good completion rates. If they're not getting good completion rates, then we want to talk about why. Is there something common that we can fix? Is there some problem with recruiting? Are we getting people that aren't qualified? Whatever it is, we need to figure that out. The only thing that probationary period means, and you'll see it again in another document, is if a person joins the apprenticeship and they're within that probationary period as defined by the document, which is 25% of the program, or 6 months in this case, then if they drop out of the apprenticeship during that period, they don't count against the sponsor's completion rate. That's it. That's all that probationary period means. It doesn't mean that they're a probationary employee. Your employment arrangement with them is independent of that. So that's a very common question from HR folks and superintendents a lot. So I wanted to go ahead and hit on that one. There is a requirement for a ratio for journey workers to mentor, or journey workers to apprentices. It's 1-to-1. So you got to have one journey worker. You can, again, I'm going to just define this term. A journey worker is a person that's fully skilled and recognized in their industry as having all of the necessary skills to do this occupation. And I'll show you the definition as we're talking about here. We're using the same definition of minimum standards for a journey worker as you already have for people who can supervise interns. So no new requirements, nothing extra special different that you're looking for. If they can supervise interns, they can be a journey worker. Now there is a journey worker training. We'll talk about that down the line. Wage schedule and all we'll go into. Affirmative action plan. The sponsor, not the employers, the sponsor will be responsible for completing an affirmative action plan. Y'all, people get scared off by these words sometimes. All I can tell you is that, one, quotas are illegal. There's no such thing. There's no minimum requirement that says, oh, the next person you hire is going to have to be of this race or gender or ethnicity or whatever. That's not a thing. That's 1970s, and that's not real anymore. The best way I can tell you what a real affirmative action plan looks like now is it's a good recruiting that, not the employers. My office will work with them. We'll set that. It really won't have anything to do with you guys as employers, but we will help them work through that. And essentially, we're looking for a good faith effort that they are broadly advertising this program and removing any barriers that are uniquely prohibiting certain types of people from being able to get in. So I know that as you have your board attorneys review these things and stuff, that guarantee you one of your board attorneys is going to throw a flag on this and have a bunch of questions about it. That's fine. Give them my phone number, tell them to call me, and I'll talk them through it. So affirmative action plan, selection procedures, complaint procedures. I will tell you, while your apprentices do not gain or lose any employment rights because they are apprentices, they do pick up one additional right, and that is in the form of a complaint procedure. So they'll follow essentially the normal complaint procedure. Let's say that they're an apprentice, a teacher apprentice for you, and you're just making them sweep floors every day, right? They're never getting to actually co-teach or any of that kind of stuff. Then they can complain through their normal channels there at the school. You know, hey, my journey worker won't let me do anything. So they talk to the principal about that. Or if they've talked to the principal and then they don't get a satisfactory answer, they roll it up through their normal chain of command in the school system. They can go to their sponsor, if the sponsor being the university, if the complaint is specifically related to the apprenticeship program. Like, hey, I'm supposed to be getting to co-teach and they won't let me do it. Well, that can go straight to their sponsor, or not straight to, they'll have to go through their normal chain of command, but go to their sponsor. And the sponsor would basically just try to mediate. Hey, why are they not getting to teach? And maybe it turns out that they are getting to teach and they're not good at it or whatever. Sponsor will try to resolve those issues. If they need to, then they can bring it to us. And all we're going to do is just, again, try to mediate the discussion. I was a high school principal and worked in the career tech program for years. I can promise you I am not the one to have people jump chain of command. My first question is always, have you talked to your local representative about this? But if you go to item number 2, other complaints, item number 1 is complaints regarding discrimination. Item 2 is general complaints. So what if that apprentice said, well, there are 3 of us apprentices here at the school. The other 2 apprentices are getting to co-teach, but I'm a minority and they won't let me co-teach. And I believe that it's got something to do with that. An apprentice does have the right to file an EEO complaint. They can skip the school, they can skip the sponsor, they can come straight to my office. I do not have EEO investigators, So if they bring an EEO type complaint to my office, they're going to be referred to the EEO office in Birmingham. And I cannot, those of you who are familiar with EEO complaints, you know that I won't inform you that there's been an EEO complaint filed. That's handled through the EEO office in Birmingham. They'll make a determination. There's all kinds of very specific rules about how long they have to submit that. And if that EEO office finds that it has merit, then your school system would be notified and you'd be engaged in that. So far, we've never had that really come up, but you know, I'm sure the longer we're here, eventually something like that will come up. Normally, of course, we would recommend that they always try to work to their local chain of command, but if they believe their local chain of command is the problem, then they do have the right to skip that and come straight to us and file an EEO complaint. Then there's just general contact information for the registration agency. We are the registration agency, the Alabama Office of Apprenticeship. And that's pretty much it for the standards. So I'm going to close that document, get out of the way. So now we've established that the university is the overarching organization running the apprenticeship program. They have the standards. Now let's get specific and start talking about the teacher apprenticeship training program. So I've got one open here. This document is what we call the Appendix A or the work process. So those two terms are interchangeable. This is very specifically, I'm already on UWA's page, so I'm opening their stuff, but you'll see one of these documents for each of the different schools that you might join under, each of the different colleges you might join under. Make it bigger, I can do that. That's a lot bigger, there we go. All right, so the work process, remember I said every apprenticeship has two parts. It has the on-the-job learning and it has the related technical instruction. This is where you get down to the details of the teacher apprenticeship, on-the-job learning, and related technical instruction. So you can see this one's registered for UWA. There's, of course, a table of contents. This is some general information. We started with this teacher apprenticeship is only for regular ed secondary teachers. And I've been beat up plenty of times already about, well, why didn't you start with elementary? And why didn't you start with special ed? And why didn't you start with career tech? We just had to start somewhere. And I was a high school teacher and understand this world a little bit better. And so this is where we started. There's a shortage in everything. If we can prove that this model is effective and is a good use of state dollars, then I really believe that we will be expanding this program. But we couldn't do everything all at once. So we started with high school teachers, regular ed classes, high school teachers. The ONET code, y'all may be familiar with ONET. This is the U.S. Department of Labor's process for identifying occupations. RAPIDS is a federal database where you register apprentices. It's not like Power School where you actually put grades in and all that. We have a different program that we'll show you for that. This is just more like your enrollment. All right, RAPIDS. If you hear me talk about RAPIDS, that's the big file cabinet is more like their CUME folder. They are enrolled in school. They are, participating. They are registered apprentices. Oh, they've completed, and then we print their certificate and they get it, or they, dropped out of the program and we cancel them out. I did already mention that this one is a competency-based program. There are 96 competencies, which I will show you, and supplemented by not less than 1,000 total hours of related instruction. That's a very generic number of hours. It's going to be predicated based on the evaluation of your apprentice's transcript. There may be apprentices who have fewer than 1,000 hours left to go. That's okay. They're getting prior credit for the other stuff that they did. So if they've already had some of the core teaching classes or they've taken the special ed course or whatever, they don't have to redo that stuff. This is just a generic number. It's based on seat hours. So you're thinking, it's not 1,000 hours of college credit. This is based on seat hours. I mentioned already that we do have a ratio here. So one journey worker can only supervise one apprentice. They're going to be in the classroom with them. Think about this very much similar to the way that you're set up now for interns. The apprentice wage schedule. So this doesn't have dollar amounts in it. I'll show you the next document has dollar amounts in it. The apprentice wage schedule, every apprenticeship has a scalable wage. And so what we've defined here is when do those, we call them bumps, when do those pay progressions, those bumps occur? So in year one, right out of the gate, first time they become an apprentice, they're going to be making 65% of the starting teacher salary. I'll show you that dollar amount on the next document. What do they have to do? They have to demonstrate fundamentals. So our work process is laid out very much. My assistant director was an elementary reading coach, and we follow a I do, we do, you do model. So in year one, they have to make it through the I do and we do parts. So they've had to observe it being done, and they've had to do it with coaching and check off that they've demonstrated the fundamentals in all 96 competencies. And this is very important, and they must have successfully completed the coursework prescribed by their institution. Remember, I'm looking at UWA example right here. So UWA is going to tell Josh the apprentice, hey, to stay on track for 2 years of completing this in 2 years, you got to finish this much coursework by the end of year one, and these specific classes, and we'll help you map out a schedule. If you get to the end of year one and that person, maybe they've done excellent in the classroom, they've checked off their competencies, but they haven't kept up with their coursework, that's a decision point there. And the school, the university, and the employer are going to have a conversation about, do we want to give them a second year in the classroom and let them keep working? Or maybe they didn't master all their competencies, but you really believe in that person as an employer and you're willing to invest in them for an additional year. Are we willing to extend that? That's the only place where this program could go from a 2-year to a 3-year. All right, so keep that in mind. If they don't master everything in year one, or they don't finish all the competencies in year one, all the coursework in year one that they needed to, you as an employer plus the university, and we can come into it if you'd like, we will collectively make a decision whether you want to keep them on in that position. That's the idea of competency-based. It really works as double insurance. So the employer is guaranteed that they're never going to be paying somebody more money just because they showed up for more days. They actually have to demonstrate that they are more valuable to you as an employer before you give them that raise. But then again, the other side of that insurance is for the apprentice. They very clearly know this right out of the gate up front. This is what I've got to do to move from year one wage to year two. So 65% of teacher salary is year one. They're all going to be successful. We're only going to pick amazing talent to go into this. They're all going to meet it. After year one, then they're going to go to year two. In year two, remember, they are going to be in their own classroom. They will be drawing 85% of a standard teacher salary. Now, obviously, these are significant raises for people who've been working as parapros and teachers' aides and that kind of stuff. So we're moving them up that financial ladder by putting them into year two. For you as a school system, you will probably lose a little money. You not lose money, that's the wrong way to say it. You are going to have to invest some money in year one. I'll talk about the state dollars that are available to support this program, but it may cost you a little bit. That's the idea of an investment. You don't get a return on an investment you don't make. We have not found any way to make this completely zero cost for a school system. However, as you're paying out that 65% and maybe whatever other small amount that you have to pay for, that is not covered if you get state dollars or whatever it is that you have to pay, keep in mind that in year two, they're going to have a classroom of their own, and you can use an existing FTE to pay that. So you're actually saving 15% of wages in year two. So there's another offset there. So year one, they're in a classroom as an intern effectively. You can't use an FTE for that. Year two, they'll have their own class. You can use an FTE for that. And then what do they have to do to complete? Well, they have to demonstrate proficiency. So remember up here, it says demonstrate fundamentals. In this one, they have to demonstrate proficiency in all of the competencies, and they complete all the required related instruction. So they still got to finish with their bachelor's degree, and they have to be able to obtain an Alabama Professional Educator Certificate, so a regular Class B license. This is an alternative path to and through a teaching certificate, teaching degree program. It is not an alternative certificate, right? So this is not, there is nothing watered down about this. That's why I keep reiterating, this is your high performers, your top level people. So if they do all of these things, or when they do all of these things, then the next year they're going to be a regular Class B teacher, and you're just going to put them in the classroom and away they go. All right, so that's the layout of the apprenticeship program. There's that probationary period that we already talked about. The minimum qualification section, we've set it at 18. That's just a generic thing. They got to be at least 18 to go into it. This is the most important part right here for you all looking at the education requirements. I've already mentioned this a little bit, but it's two parts really. They have to have sufficient transferable and acceptable college credit hours. Oh, excuse me one moment. Sufficient transferable and acceptable college credit hours, placing the applicant within 2 academic years of completing a bachelor's degree in an approved teacher prep program. So originally when we were talking about this, we talked about setting a specific number of hours, but that's different for different students. You know, how close are you? How much do you have left to go? What's your prior performance been looking like? If you were making C's in your classes coming up to this point, are you going to be able to handle a really aggressive schedule of knocking out classes for the next 2 years? We also talked about requiring them to have an associate's degree, but that doesn't really work either, because maybe I've got an associate's degree in welding. Well, then I'm still going to be missing a bunch of those original first 2-year prerequisites that I'll have to go into the College of Education. So this was the best that we could come up with. We realized that it's a little bit broad, but broad also means customizable, and it means that we're going to evaluate each apprentice applicant as we go. And I'll show you the application so you'll see how that works. And then part 2, and this is very big, it says confirmed eligibility to be enrolled in an approved teacher prep program. So I'm just going to flip back over to this page for a second. If we go to UWA, for example, there is a link on this page for application to the UWA College of Education. That's a separate process. If you can't get into the UWA's College of Education, if you've got a 1.0 GPA or whatever it is coming in and you try to apply and you can't get in, then you can't do this program. You got to be able to get into a teacher ed program. So in this document, that's what this means. It's 2 parts. You got to have enough appropriate transferable college credit that you can be within 2 years of completing, and you've got to apply to and get into a teacher ed program. You don't already have to be in one. If you're already in one, great, but you don't already have to be in one. You've got to be able to get into one. The physical is just the same as you would see on any other job description. They got to be able to do it with reasonable accommodations, not a threat to anybody else. They do have to complete a background check through the State Department. If you're looking at parapros and teachers aides, many of them may already have that, but if not, they definitely got to do that. They got to provide citizenship verification and evidence of a valid Social Security number. A lot of that has to do with applying for the teacher certificate from the State Department of Education. So then there's a section here called selection procedures, and I'm gonna be honest with you, you can skip all of this, because what we're looking at is this one, direct entry. We are not accepting applicants for teacher apprenticeship off the street, and that's really what this section would go to. So that would be somebody that doesn't work for you, just showed up and wants to be a teacher and they want to apply. We're looking at incumbent workers. That's the terminology here. So an incumbent worker, you get to skip all of this section and you're going down here to direct entry. So this process basically lays out what's in the application. I'll show you all of that in the application because it'll make more sense there. But just take away from this, as you're looking at this App A, direct entry is the section that you're looking at. These are people who are inside your school system. The biggest difference that makes is you don't have to openly advertise this to the community and let people from, New York State or whatever come in here and apply if you don't want to. You're looking for incumbent workers, people that are already in your school system. So then this at the bottom here starts to get into the details of the training outline itself. So this is the work process and these are the competencies. Remember I mentioned I do, we do, you do section. That's what this is laid out as. We'll show you a tool that you use to track this stuff in a few minutes. These are the competencies. Remember that we talked about how the work group got together, the competency work group got together and wrote competencies, and then we aligned that with the ATOT. They also added a section. So you get down here, culture and climate, job function 2 through the rest of them, that's all ATOT. But as we were talking to these superintendents and principals, one thing kept coming up. It's possible to be good at teaching and still be a bad employee. And it is also possible to be a good employee who is terrible at teaching. So this first section about employability skills, these are very similar to what you would expect to teach. I hope you are teaching these kind of employability skills in your career prep classes. That's what we're looking for here. They've got to be adapt to new and changing requirements. Good grief, how often do we change requirements in teacher prep programs? They got to adhere to the Alabama Code of Ethics. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but confer with staff members outside of their content area. These are those employability skills that the superintendents and principals felt were very important to make sure that we documented these. Because, yeah, can you check the boxes and can you be a good teacher? Can you be in the room conveying information well, connecting with students, building relationships with students and all that? That's part one. Of course, that's probably the primary part. But if you have a negative attitude and you never turn in paperwork and you won't show up to work, display a strong work ethic, if you won't show up, you're no good to me. So that's why you see an addition. Besides just what's in the ATOT, you also see this employability skills addition. Then when you get down here and you start going through job function 2 through the rest of them, it's culture and climate. So all of this, if you've been trained on the ATOT already, you'll recognize these. Again, these were originally developed separate from the ATOT, and then we compared it and aligned them with, and they line up right with, and every place we could, we used the same language as the ATOT. So it shouldn't be something brand new for your administrators or journey workers to have to become familiar with. So as they're going through this, we just go back up at the top. These 3 columns, field training, of course, means that they watched, and it's defined up here, but they watched. The mentor has shown them, the journey worker has shown them this is how we do this, and they've maybe participated a little bit. And then demonstrates fundamentals. This is in the we do section, right? You do it, and I'm going to be there to catch you if you start to fall off your bike. To progress from year 1 to year 2, they've got to get a checkbox in both of these columns, the first and second column. Year 3, they've got to be a checkbox in proficient in task. And I'm saying checkbox, but I'll show you the actual way we track these things. All right, I'm not going to read you all 96 competencies. And then we get to the next section. So this is the coursework. Okay. That's the on-the-job learning. The only people who can check off the on-the-job learning, these competencies, are the employer, the journey worker, the school. That gets checked off in the classroom, live action doing. This down here is the stuff that the university is going to check off as they provide the related technical instruction. First thing I want to point out to you is there are different methods of delivery. So we made a key so that a person could look at this and say, yeah, here's a competency-based assessment. I'm going to be able to demonstrate proficiency for that in the classroom, and that's how I'm going to earn my grade for that particular class. Or this one is virtual asynchronous or virtual synchronous. That stuff matters as the apprentice is planning their life. How many face-to-face classes am I going to need to get to, right? And how many are going to be monitored as clinical experience? That matters. We're talking about working adults here. If I've got to go every single class face-to-face, that's been one of the biggest barriers. I can't tell you how proud we are of our university partners for the effort they put into organizing this coursework and putting as many different methods and as flexible methods as possible for people to be able to access this training. All right, so this one is for University of Alabama, West Alabama General Science. Let me pause here and show you each university, they're not all participating in all of the different areas. So UWA is doing an apprenticeship for all of these, secondary English language arts, et cetera, et cetera. If I go back over here, Troy is doing these, English, social studies, and math, right? So you need to look at the particular college, and as you're talking with your apprentices about what they want to do, well, obviously, if they want to do a class or an apprenticeship in a subject area that's not offered at that university, then you need to join under a different university. So all of them will be generally formatted in the same pattern. So you've got some electives that are laid out. I just want to draw your attention to this column here that says delivery. That's what lines up here. So AS in that case would be asynchronous, CBE, competency-based assessment, all of that. So you can look through that. You can see they've laid it out generically. Here's what we would be doing in year 1, junior year. Here's what we'd be doing in year 2, senior year. I say generically because each apprentice's transcript is going to be evaluated. What if that person already took human anatomy and physiology 1? Well, they don't have to redo it, so we mark that off. They're good to go. So each transcript will be evaluated to determine which specific courses, just like they would if they were any other transfer student coming in, what do you have left to get through to your bachelor's degree? Meredith, how much time have I got left? Cool. All right, we're making it. All right, so that's the work process in a nutshell. Every work process, and they're all available back here on our webpage. So if you go to AUM, you can see right here, here's the App A, that's the work process for AUM, or whatever. You go to any one of the colleges and you'll be able to see every one of their work processes. So I do recommend that you evaluate those, as you're considering apprentices and as you're considering areas where you need teachers. Look at the list and see if that university offers an apprenticeship for that particular subject area. All right, that is the work process, the App A. I think that covers everything we want to cover on that. So then the next document is where you as an employer decide, yeah, I want to do this. I want to join that program at such and such a school, whichever school that is. I can move this window. There it goes. I'll make this larger. All right, so this document is where you as a local education agency agree to join the program at one or multiple of the universities who is acting as a sponsor. So this one is pretty straightforward. The employer acceptance agreement is adopted by, and you'll fill in the name of your school system here, and the name of the university that you're participating with right here, and it's all labeled, so it will say, I'm from Phoenix City, so Phoenix City Schools agrees to carry out, blah, blah, blah. And notice there are some things that you're committing to. On the job, the apprentice is hereby guaranteed assignment to a skilled and competent journey worker. So you got to put them with a person who meets the definition of a journey worker, which is the same as the definition for somebody who could supervise interns, and that they're going to be given the opportunity to do all of the stuff that's laid out in the work process. You can't have them do nothing but grade papers all year long and expect that they would ever be able to demonstrate fundamentals in all those other competencies. So you're going to fill out this form, you're going to return it to the university. Now, there is a sample of the work process so that you all can see that. I'm sorry, of the Appendix D, Employer Acceptance Agreement. There's a sample of it on here. That's a Word document sample just for you to look at in advance. Do not fill that one out. When you get ready to join under a particular college or university, you're going to contact that university and say, hey, I want to join your apprenticeship for science educators or math educators or whatever it is. They will give you the official fillable form. We're doing that because if we have people, and I even hesitated to put that sample up there, just to be blunt, I don't want your teachers to go on here and grab one of these and fill it out and send it to the college, and then the college has got to figure out, like, wait a minute, who is this person? We want you as an employer, somebody at the school system level, to be the one to communicate with, in this case, Jan Miller or Renee Rogers at UWA, or each college has their appropriate point of contact listed there. Dr. Christy Calhoun, whoever it is, you're going to email Christy Calhoun and say, Christy, I'm the superintendent in Laney County Schools, and we'd like to join because I want to do some apprentices in social studies. Christy will send you the App D, the Employer Acceptance Agreement we were looking at, and that's the first step for you to join the Registered Apprenticeship Program. You've got to join under one or multiple, however many universities you intend to participate with. And then the rest is pretty basic: name of employer, address, city, EIN number, who's the primary point of contact. Doesn't have to be, this primary point of contact does not have to be the superintendent. Who's going to be running, who's going to be kind of your point person on the ground handling your apprenticeship program? Some of you have people in the school system that's their job. They handle all the mentoring, all of that kind of stuff. That'd be who I'd go with. So doesn't have to be the super on that line right there. Total number of journey workers, however many apprentices. The main number this is for is you can never have more apprentices than you have journey workers. So you don't need to do some big in-depth study of your whole school system to figure out how many people qualify for, as intern supervisors, or journey workers. We just need a number here. So if you're thinking high school, how many people do I have up there that probably could supervise a journey worker? 10, 15, whatever. As long as that number is higher than the number of apprentices you're putting on, it's fine. Minimum qualifications, they've already been defined in that Appendix A, so that means that you've reviewed those, you've looked at the minimum qualifications. The apprentice has got to be 18 years old, and it's got the other minimum qualifications spelled out in the App A. Then we get to wages. Somewhere on this call is the CFO who's been waiting to talk about money this whole time. The current journey worker wage, so that means starting teacher pay. That's a fully competent, certified person. The current journey worker wage is a minimum $44,226. That's just the state minimum threshold. So down here, you're going to specify for your school system what are the minimum bumps that you're going to pay at year 1, year 2, and then completion. It can't be less than 65% of this $44,226. And if you hover over that blank, it shows you. We've already done the math for you. That's the amount if you're doing 65% of $44,226. It could be more. I know there are some school systems that pay local supplements. They have addition on top of the state minimum pay scale, or whatever you call it. So if your school system pays a starting teacher more than this amount, then you can do the math there and say 65% of whatever your amount is, and you can type in a custom amount there. The main thing is it can never be less than 65% of that $44,226, because that's the state-defined minimum journey worker pay. And then, of course, 100% here, this is what they'll make when they become a fully certified Class B teacher in your school system. So if you have any questions about that, I can certainly go through it with you, but it's pretty straightforward math. Most school systems are paying the state minimum pay scale, so you'll just hover over it and it'll tell you the exact, I mean, you can do the math, but we already did it for you. So you hover over that. Then we get down here for the signature section, you know, printed name of the employer. We're looking for superintendent here, all right? We want the superintendent, title superintendent, they'll sign it, they'll date it, then you're gonna send it back to. Remember in this example, I said you were joining under Jack State, and so you asked for Christy Calhoun to send you this. So you will fill it out all the way down to this section, and then you'll send it back to Christy. She'll review it. When she approves it, she's gonna sign off on it. She'll get you back a fully executed copy for your records. She will let us know, and we will put you into the computer as a registered apprenticeship employer. So you will send that back to her. That's where you find this contact. I just wanted to make sure I showed you that. That's who you're going to request it from. That's who you're going to send it back to. You only need one of these. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do it every year, and you don't have to do it for every apprentice. You just do it one time, and then you are a participating employer under that university. I would recommend, if you're not sure, like maybe I might use Jack State and AUM, or Jack State, AUM, and UWA. There's no harm in joining multiple, right? So you want to make sure you get that done. As you sign on, we will start to list right here on this page, local education agency, you know, Laney County Schools, and whoever you put on that App D as the point of contact, so that when an apprentice or a potential apprentice, an applicant says, hey, I want to join, does my school system even participate? This is where they can tell. They can go right there and see who's joined under what. We'll update that as quickly as we can. It won't be, you know, day to day, but we'll update that as quickly as we can so people know where to join under. All right, so that gets us all the way down through the documents where you would, as an employer, join the apprenticeship program. I want to highlight for you or preview for you some of the next steps there. So the next step would be apprentice applications. No, I'm sorry. The next step you want to know about is funding. So there is some state dollars have been allocated to a total of $2.4 million that have been allocated for the teacher apprenticeship program. And I'm going to open this document. The Alabama Office of Apprenticeship is housed inside the State Department of Commerce. We do not do grants. So we cannot have a scored system where you apply and say, hey, I get points because I'm rural, or I've got a Title I school, or I've got, you know, long-term vacancies or whatever. We don't do grants. We do incentives. So the difference in incentives is they're essentially first come, first serve. The employer has to be joined under an apprenticeship program, and they have to, you know, demonstrate that they are able to participate, and they're going to request the funding. With the way funding works for school systems, I realize that there are school systems out there who won't be able to participate unless they get some of the state money to help offset these costs. So we are creating what we're calling a pre-qualification process. This document will be posted online very soon. I'm still tweaking a couple of the items in the wording, but pre-qualification is not the same. I'm going to say it 5 times. Pre-qualification is not a guarantee of funding and is not the same as a contract. But if your school system is saying, hey, I'd like to participate, but I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to unless I get those state dollars, the way that you're going to do that, it's all laid out here. You're going to first have to do what we just talked about, that employer acceptance agreement. You're going to have to sign at least one of those and have a fully executed copy, signed off on by the school, the university, and it's going to have to be all approved. Get that first. That moves you to step 2. Step 2 is you're going to fill out the next sheet that's attached right here. And this is the pre-qualification information and assurances sheet. So document is submitted on behalf of Blaney County Schools and the superintendent. The superintendent will need to initial. We'll make it so that it can be done electronically. I understand that the completion of this is not a guarantee of funding. You're essentially getting in line. You're saying, hey, we have joined under a college. We are interested in doing this. We'd like to pre-qualify for funding. So as we do that, we're going to make a waiting list. And as these come in, that's how we're going to have to allocate out the funds. Who completed the process first? So what's that completed process look like? I'll show you in a moment. I understand that the final determination of an individual's eligibility is not complete until the apprentice's application has been approved. I'll show you the apprentice's application in just a second. There is a requirement that the journey workers be paid. Now, we cannot require you to pay a certain amount to the journey workers unless we are giving you these state dollars. However, it is extremely highly recommended that all of your journey workers be appropriately compensated because they are going to be required to participate in a journey worker training. It's not a lot, but it will be a journey worker training to familiarize them with how to keep up with the records and all that. My office will put on that training. And they are going to be required to do some additional meetings and times. And it's just not fair to ask your best teachers in the building, who are the ones we want to be your journey workers, to do more work for no more money. I mean, that's just the way the world works. So if you accept these state dollars, you are required to commit that out of those state dollars, the stipend of $3,500 will be paid to the journey worker for a first-year apprentice, and $2,500 will be paid for a journey worker for a second-year apprentice. The expected number of hours that we look at over the course of the year, the average teacher salary for a base teacher pay, that's how we came up with those dollar amounts. These aren't just arbitrary or pulled out of thin air, but we feel like that's fair. So again, if you're accepting our state dollars, you must agree to do that. If you're not accepting our state dollars, we truly hope that you will do that or something very, very close to that. The next one is to understand that the incentive funds are meant to help offset the initial investment. Offset is different than cover, right? So the employer acceptance agreement and the standards specify that the employer is serving as a last dollar scholarship. If I've got GI Bill and Pell and WIOA or whatever, a financial aid of other gift aid as an apprentice, I'm required to use that first. But if there's a bill left over after that is used, that does not go to the apprentice. That goes straight to the employer. And the universities are going to be setting up a system so they will send you the bill. It's not a reimbursement. The apprentice doesn't pay it and then you pay them back. It comes straight to the employer. So that's what you're committing to right here, that you are the last dollar scholarship. In year 1, with these funds, we're going to be able to provide the local school system $40,000 per apprentice in year 1. In year 2, it's $20,000. If that doesn't fully cover the tuition, or if it doesn't cover, the fringe benefits, that's the part that is the investment of the school system. So that's what you're committing to right here. Can that be different from apprentice to apprentice? Yeah. You might have somebody that comes in and is an apprentice and they're a veteran with GI Bill eligibility and you're not paying anything or very little for their tuition. So you might actually make a little money on that one. Or you may have somebody comes in and they don't have any other type of financial aid. So between their tuition and their wages, you may be investing some cost. That's what we're asking you to consider right here. And that's what you're committing to when you accept these dollars. Don't come back later and say, well, you only gave me $40,000 and $40,000 wasn't enough to cover it. So we sent the rest of the bill to the apprentice. You get no return on an investment you don't make. And that is a shift in mindset, I realize, where most school systems are used to being fully funded FTE wise, and that's how they afford teachers. You've got to be able to come up with, or be prepared to come up with, that difference if one exists. Sometimes we get this question about, well, can I make them sign a contract to continue to work here? We strongly discourage those. And in fact, there is very, very high likelihood that in April of this coming year, the Federal Trade Commission is going to outlaw those because they are seen as non-compete clauses, whether you call them that or not. They're anti-competitive and they prevent worker mobility. So if you accept the state dollars in incentive funds, you cannot require a work commitment. If you don't accept the state dollars in incentive funds, I do highly discourage those work commitments. If you think about it this way, if you've got somebody that already works there for you, you've chosen this person to invest in. If you pay them well, treat them good, give them an opportunity to move up through the ranks and build their career right there in your school system, these people are going to stay. If you put them on a work commitment and say, well, you must work for me 2 years after completion of this program or something along those lines, all you've done is start a clock in that person's mind of how much more time they owe you. Those of you who are in the school system, most of you can probably tell me exactly how much longer you've got till you retire. We don't want people thinking that way. We want people thinking about completing a career at this location. So if you accept state dollars for incentives on this, you cannot require that. If you don't accept state dollars, you can require a work commitment, but we strongly discourage them, and it cannot be in the form of a loan. And there are certain stipulations, and you can find this in the policy documents on the AOA webpage. You can't, there are certain stipulations. It can only be for the actual cost that you paid out. You can't require a work commitment longer than the amount of time that they were in training with you. So if you're considering doing that, if you're not accepting state dollars and you're considering doing that, then I recommend you definitely read over those apprenticeship policies there. The LEA will require all journey workers to participate in the training. Like I said, it'll be virtual. We'll do it. It's good training and it's not a huge time commitment, but we need them to become familiar with some of the terminology and the slight differences, plus their expectations of what we want them to do to track the progress of the apprentice. And then a preliminary review of apprentices has been conducted. So we're asking you, before you even ask for these state dollars, you've at least done a kind of an interest survey and looked around your school, and hopefully you've been doing this already, and said, you know, Miss Lee has been taking classes on her own dime and own time for years because she wants to be a teacher. Let's talk to her and see how close she is, and let's see if she'd be a good candidate. I want you to do that before you tie up funds or before you ask to tie up funds. So last part here is pre-qualification is requested for. You can ask for 1 or 2. That's it. That's all we can do. Pay for. That's all we can do incentive funds for in the school system, up to 2. Please don't everybody just circle 2. If you know that you really have 2 candidates, circle 2 or checkbox or whatever it is. But don't just automatically put 2 if you don't really have that. So how do you know if you need 1 or 2? Well, let's talk about projecting for a minute. In year 1, this person is going to be in the classroom with a journey worker. They're not covering a class for you. But by year 2, they're going to be going into their own classroom. So you need to look, really, you've only got to project 1 year into the future. What kind of openings am I going to have? What kind of openings do I have now that are filled by long-term subs or that are just vacant, that I'm having to do, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff with to fill those classes? We want you to set the goal of hiring all of these apprentices. They're hired while they're apprentices. I said that incorrectly. We want you to set the goal of making full-time teachers out of them when they complete the apprenticeship program. But you are not required to guarantee them a job as a teacher when they complete the apprenticeship program. There is a good market for teachers in the state right now, and if somebody completes with a bachelor's degree in science, they can get a job. We are not encouraging them to go shopping somewhere else, and we hope that you have a spot for them, but we're not going to say that you must guarantee them a position as a science teacher the year after they graduate with that bachelor's degree. If they did have continuing service in their previous position, they maintain that continuing service, that's a whole different question than whether or not you have to promote them to an open position. But it's not hard to find a spot for a high school science teacher or a high school, any of these core teachers. So when you're considering who, it's not just, is this a good candidate, but if that candidate tells you, yes, I've been working for years towards my teacher ed degree, I want to be an elementary teacher. Well, that's not a good candidate for this year. it's not a good candidate for this cohort because we're doing high school science. I keep saying science because that's me, but we're doing high school secondary teachers in secondary core subjects. So do that projection as you're considering that 1 or 2 apprentices. We'll need the type name and signature of the superintendent. The rest of that process, so it goes like this. You'll do the App D, that's the employer acceptance agreement. That's the first one we looked at, where you join one of the universities. You get that fully completed. Then you're going to complete this page, all right, that checklist. You're going to send a single email with a copy of that fully executed employer acceptance agreement and the attestation sheet to Amy Brown. Amy Brown works for me here in the office. Amy is our incentives accountability person. She's the one who will then guide you through the next step. The next step, AIDT, Alabama Industrial Development Training, is our fiscal agent. You have to become a vendor with AIDT. You have to get set up in our system so that we can ever cut you a check. All right. There are several documents that are required in that. You are not completed. This process is not completed until you have submitted all of those documents. So you do the first 2, email them to Amy. She'll send you back a checklist and tell you the other ones. And it's simple stuff. It's your E-Verify. It's a W-9. It's things that you all do all the time. But we have to have all of them. And sometimes we wind up chasing people. Hey, you didn't send me the E-9 or the E-Verify. I got to have it. So until you've done all of that step with her, you don't go into the list. When you completed all of those steps and all those documents with her, she will put you on a list in the order that they were completed. And that's what we will offer funding to. So if we come along and you're number 27 and we offer you funding for 2 apprentices, but you didn't get 2 qualifying applicants, then one of those spots would roll down to whoever was number 41 on the list. We're funding 40, $60,000 total per apprentice, $40,000 in year 1, $40,000 in year, or $20,000 in year 2. So I realize that sounds like a lot. It's really pretty straightforward if you go through it in order. All right, I'm going to read the standards. I'm going to look at the App A. I'm going to go out and talk to my my parapros, teachers aides, and let me just pause here. Somebody asked recently, well, what about, I've got a secretary that's been doing this. That could be considered. We're looking for people within the classroom, but that could be considered. Now, why might you consider that? When this person goes to become a teacher apprentice, that is a new job. That is a different occupation. They do not keep doing the old thing. They can't continue to be a special ed aide who is assigned to a student, walks around with them all day to different classes, and also be serving as an apprentice and teaching and co-writing lesson plans and all that kind of stuff. So they are moving into a new job. So you've got to also be prepared to backfill that other spot. So if you're, lead secretary for the school, or your bookkeeper, or somebody comes along and says, hey, I've been taking classes, I want to be a teacher, can I get into this program? For our part, we would not prohibit that, and the rules don't prohibit that. They do have to be an employee, but they don't have to be a parapro necessarily. Just consider your backfill requirements if you go through that. All right, so the last thing I want to show you, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions, is the application itself. I've got this one also marked draft. We will have the final version of the application out on the website. Still working with the State Department on a few, there we go. Still working with the State Department on a few little items of terminology to make sure that we get it so that it's all one document. You don't have to do multiple steps. This will be a fillable PDF as well. It is a multi-step application. So it will start with an applicant, the person who wants to be an apprentice. Very basic, straightforward, name, all of their biographical information and demographic information. We do have to have this information. They, ethnicity and all of that, they can mark do not wish to identify. But this is stuff that we have to put them into Rapids, that database that I was telling you about. And so they're going to fill out all of these things. They're very straightforward. State Department does need their social. I know some people get real squirrely about putting their social security number on documents. State Department has to have that for you to apply for your teacher certificate. So to keep all of this in one document, we got to have that social on there. Now, if the apprentice wants to wait until the rest of the document is complete and then fill in the social, that would be okay too. But by the time the document is done, it's got to come in with that social security number on there. So the State Department will have that. Right now, there are no pre-apprenticeships available for teachers in the state of Alabama, but we anticipate in the next couple of years we will have some. So we went ahead and just put in a place here. Everybody's going to be marking no on pre-apprenticeship right now. but we just wanted to make it so we didn't have to redo that document. Every apprentice and every applicant must be given the opportunity to disclose a disability if they have one. This is strictly for demographic purposes. If you click on this link, it'll carry you to a form, and that form is for the apprentice to fill out. It is called a voluntary disclosure form. Oh, I didn't open. I'll try to. There it goes. It's a voluntary disclosure form, and I strongly recommend that you get at least one of these on file for every apprentice and every applicant, so that you've got evidence that you did allow them the opportunity. Now, I may not have a disability today. I might get in a car wreck and have a disability tomorrow. So it's available to them to disclose the disability in an ongoing fashion, but you need to give them the opportunity to disclose that. That information will be entered into Rapids. Nobody has a right to see that except the employer who collects that information, gives it over to the sponsor puts it into Rapids. That's it. Even my office cannot ask for a copy of these things. I emphasize that because sometimes people are hesitant to disclose if they have a disability. We really want them to feel comfortable that this information is kept. It's in a separate folder. It doesn't become part of their CUME record at the college, anything like that. It is strictly identifying so that we can know, are we serving people with disabilities in the state of Alabama with apprenticeships? So I really highly recommend that you have them fill that out, and they return that to their sponsor, or they return it to you and you will return that into their sponsor. So then this gets into some of the things that the State Department needs for them. Initial certification, they've got to have background checks. Some people may already have that. You will probably recognize this section. It comes basically straight from other types of teacher certificate applications. It's a bunch of check boxes, yes, no. There is a fee to apply for the teacher apprentice license. It is $38, I believe. If that's not on here, we'll get it on here. But the school system is responsible. If you sign off and you want to forward this application for completion, the school system picks this up, that $38. You all know how to do that. You've done that before for years, so you'll follow that same process. So that part is all filled out by the apprentice, and that's part A. Then we get to part B. All right, part B is where the apprentice is going to say, oh, I see that Laney County Schools has joined the apprenticeship under AUM. I'm going to now communicate with AUM and ask them to evaluate my transcript. So this will be the name of the institution would be AUM. Contact information will be filled out here for who is evaluating the transcript and when the evaluation was done. If Josh comes to AUM and says, hey, I want to be a math teacher, then they're going to look specifically at the math course of study that's laid out. This is lined up right with the program of study that the State Department already has approved for this college. So no question about it. They're meeting all the minimum requirements to get their teacher certificate. But they're going to evaluate it, and they're going to tell me, hey, Josh, it looks like you do have enough credit, sufficient transferable acceptable credit to be within 2 years. And we've checked, and you are eligible or are already enrolled in our College of Education. So a double yes means that this thing moves on to the next step. If they get a no, that means that they either don't have the sufficient credit or they're not eligible to enroll, and the college is going to basically do a little advisement with them right then. Here's what you need to do so that you could get to the point you could get into this program. Also, they are going to be right here. If they haven't already if they get a yes in both boxes and they haven't already done their FAFSA, they will be encouraged and directed right then. Right now, we need to get that FAFSA done so that we don't miss any deadlines or anything along those lines. If they're already working for you, chances are they may not qualify for Pell, but who knows? If they're taking care of a family and they're single and all that kind of stuff, then their wages may be such that they do qualify. So whatever it is, many of the universities have scholarships, other available types of scholarships, but all of it starts with filling out the FAFSA, just like you tell all your high school kids already. They've got to do that. If they are good to go, or if they're not, either way, it's going to get signed off by the representative of the college, and that moves it on. It either ends the process or it moves on to the next step. Step 3, or part C, is where they'll bring it back to the employer. So they can say, hey, boss, it turns out I am a candidate, and I see that we've joined under such and such university. They've evaluated my transcript, and I am eligible. You still, as the employer, decide, yeah, you're eligible, but you're maybe my worst employee in the entire school system, Josh. I'm not investing in, whatever. That's your decision who you want to approve at this point. So you'll put in, well, I've got Jacksonville State University, but this would be, Laney County School System. This is the person at the school system who is filling out this. They do have to be a current employee in good standing, but we didn't say what kind of employee. Current employee in good standing. Start date of applicants' employment in this LEA. This is just demographics. We want to be able to report out later who, these were people who've been working there 5 years on average or whatever. What's their current job title? So you might specify teacher's aide or parapro or whatever. And then other data here, these things with an asterisk don't determine whether the person gets into the program. They're just information we're gathering. They're assigned to special ed right now, or they Title I right now. We want to know where we're pulling them from, or what is their current grade level responsibility. Again, what are we pulling them from? If you did have a secretary or bookkeeper, somebody that was getting in, that's where you put them in other right there. This specifies that the journey worker teacher who supervises the apprentices does have to meet those requirements laid out in the admin code, the same as they would if they were supervising interns. We're asking, has the LEA identified a teacher with appropriate qualifications? So back up here, Josh talked to the college and had his transcript evaluated for general science. Down here, we're asking you, have you identified a journey worker for Josh to go with in general science? Because you can't put a person studying general science in a English teacher's classroom and have them be the journey worker. So you have to have identified a appropriate journey worker for that person. And we want the name and certificate number of the proposed journey worker. If it changes later on, fine. But at least this way we can check and we know that you have a person that's aligned with what that person says they want to do. And then you've made the payment for the application and the superintendent signs here. This can be electronic. One of the things we're going to have to add here is a stipulation about if you sign it electronically, then it's real. And then the last part is instructions for submission. Oh, here's where the $38 part comes in. So this will collectively, once it's all done, you're submitting it to the university, who's going to say, yep, Josh meets all the requirements. We're going to register them as an apprentice. Once the university signs off on it, they're going to be communicating the completed application and their registration as an apprentice to the State Department, who will then issue that teacher certification. It'll get reviewed. I'm not going to read you all of that kind of stuff. And then there's a non-discrimination clause at the end. Wow, I used all of our time. So, all right. Yeah, so the plan for add and sped in elementary is we got to make the secondary one work first. We got to prove that this model works in general, and then we would have to go back to the legislature with some data and show them that it is successful and popular, and then we would look at getting another pool of funding to do another batch or another occupation. Yes, but if you can call now, you got them in order, then it'll be easier for you. Great question. The apprentice could be moved to a different school. That one's easy enough. If you needed to, the apprentice could be moved to a different school. But these people are employees first. So just because they pass their classes, if they're being a bad employee or you just don't think that they fit or something's not working out, you can absolutely still terminate them or offer them the opportunity to go back to their previous position if you wanted to. Anything you could do with any other employee, you can do with these. Nope, only for Alabama school systems. Each state has their own apprenticeship agency. The state of Georgia is operated by the U.S. Department of Labor like we used to be, and we can't run a program that would certify teachers in another state or would supervise apprentices in another state. Teachers. There's definitely not a double dipping situation here because this is additional work that they're doing. It's outside of their normal teaching responsibilities. And much of it will be required after hours, although not all of it is required after hours. Some is paid during the daytime, but it's additional responsibilities. So it's definitely not a double dipping problem, but teachers are the journey workers. Now, with that said, especially like considering that first question about what if the administrator decided this isn't a good employee or whatever, the administrator and that journey worker, or the administrator is still going to be observing them just like they could observe anybody else. So they could be popping in and doing observations and all, deciding exactly the first question: am I going to let this person become a teacher in my building? Am I going to move them on to year 2, et cetera, et cetera? All right, the state will provide a total of $60,000 per apprentice. The way we've got it broken out now is a one lump sum payment of $40,000. Once you're approved, that would come in the fall of year 1, and then another lump sum payment for the apprentice of $20,000 in the fall of year 2. So it's you will have to fill out with Amy a bit of a budget of what you expect to spend these dollars on, but it's not a reimbursement basis. It's an upfront payment. And then the second part of the question was, can they be a mentor for a new teacher and be a journey worker? Yes, but consider the workload on that person, because we want to make sure that they have the time to commit to really invest in the training of this apprentice. So you know the workload and you know the capabilities of that person. What we don't want to do is overload our best people, especially with this being a new program where we may have to be helping them figure it out kind of as we go. So yes, it's not impossible, but we would much prefer that our journey workers are pretty much dedicated to the apprenticeship program. Let me see. See how much they replied. Somebody said, are all 4 of the colleges offering the same programs this time? No, they're not. Okay. Are there any other questions? I don't see anything else in the chat that I haven't addressed. Are there any other questions if you want to throw them in there right quick? Okay. So what now? What do you need to do right now? 1, you need to decide which universities you want to participate with and initiate contact with those universities to begin completing your employer acceptance agreement. Only do that after you have reviewed the standards of apprenticeship and the work process and you understand what's going on there. If you have questions, you can certainly email me or call me if you can get me, or check with your contact there at the university. Remember, this is new for the universities too. So, y'all be patient with us. If you ask a question and they say, not sure, let's figure it out. We need to all commit to be in the let's figure it out together kind of mindset going forward. So step 1 right now, identify the universities with which you want to participate, get those app Ds done, get them fully executed. Then if you're planning to seek the state dollars, which I'm sure many or most of you will, you're going to go through. I will send out an email on the update me email list and just say documents have been updated on the teacher apprenticeship website, so that you can go there and you can find that pre-qualification list that I showed you. So app Ds, pre-qualification list, getting in line with Amy Brown here at my office, and then we'll let you know. By the way, once you complete that process, we'll let you know where you are in the list. Hey, you're number 52. Then you're pretty far down the list, but if somebody else doesn't claim the dollars, then it rolls down to you and we'll let you know. If you're number 2, then you can feel quite confident that, as long as you find qualified people. So that's the other thing I would say you need to be doing right now is go ahead and start that discussion. Again, Jose, whatever Jose did, he had every single, Dr. Reyes had every single parapro in his school system registered on our update newsletter thing last week. So maybe you want to do that, maybe you don't, but it will serve you well to not wait until the last minute to start looking for those applicants. We will have onboarding for the journey workers. We will have onboarding for apprentices. So we will help them understand what they're committing to once everybody is kind of signed up here. So this is definitely not the last training. How soon will the recording be available? It usually takes like 24 hours for these things when we record them on here. Sometimes I can't get to them for 24 hours, and then I have to process it. I'll put it on YouTube, and I'll put a link right on, because that's the easiest way for people to get to it. And I'll put a link right on the front page where the other one is. It's, interested employer meeting. There'll be another link that says interested employer meeting 2. I'll put the date on it. I'll send out a notification on the update me mailing list when that comes out. Okay. If you have any questions, you all should have my email at this point, but if you don't, I'm putting it in the chat. If I can type my own email address, that'd be good. josh.laney@commerce.alabama.gov. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or reach out to the university that you intend to join under. Thank you for sticking around a little bit past our planned time. If you have anything come up, let me know. Y'all have a great day.